the simple fact that GTA 6 is going to have UGC tools and potentially will be a creator platform more than just, a really awesome AAA game shows that game developers at the highest level and tech companies in general are taking this opportunity seriously.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of the Leaderboard Insights podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Lindberg, the head of U.S. brand partnerships at Overwolf. Today, I'm excited to be joined by someone who spends every day at the intersection of games, creators, and the business shaping all of it, Alex Lee. Alex is one of the most prominent writers covering the games industry right now. He's reported deeply on UGC, creator economies, AI's impact on development and advertising, as well as the shifting roles of platform and live events. If you've read GamesBeat or Digiday this year, you've probably hit at least a few stories of his, including one that sparked some big conversations across the industry. I would know. I repost a number of them on my LinkedIn feed. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Nate, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great, man. We've been trying to get you on for a while now. I'm really excited. This is going to be our end of year episode. So we're going to be talking a lot about 2025, the year that it was, and 2026, the year that it will be, which is going to be exciting. There's a lot to, I think, reflect on, and there is a lot to look forward to, I think, in this industry. And it's funny for those of us who have spent considerable amounts of years, some would say decades, in this space, it looks a lot different. And there's been a lot of change over this year. So I'm excited to kind of hear your thoughts on where we've been and where we're going. But let's start out with just talking about you first and foremost. How does a guy end up covering business and writing for, premium publishers like Digiday and GamesBeat?
Yeah, so I really appreciate this opportunity to come on, not only to talk about the end of the year, but because this is the beginning of just my second month as the lead news writer at GamesBeat. And it's been a insanely busy month. We had an event in San Francisco last month that I just jumped right into as soon as I started. And I'm still kind of figuring out exactly, the direction I want to take things at this company. But it's really a return to what I'm interested in covering most for me. I spent 4 years at Digiday covering gaming through the lens of marketing and advertising. I think that was probably the best time to jump into that coverage or that lens for gaming, because there's so much happening over the last 4 years. And then at the beginning of 2025, for various reasons, Digiday actually switched me to a focus on covering content creators. And so that took me away a little bit from this passion of gaming and of following the money through advertising and marketing and also these growing UGC ecosystems. And actually, I was really starting to push my coverage of UGC in that creator role, because I view UGC creators on platforms like Fortnite and Roblox and all of the different platforms that Overwolf has a hand in as the next kind of frontier of the creator economy. This isn't a knock on, my editorial direction at Digiday, because I think creators are also really, really hot right now. But the feedback I was getting over and over again was, why are you writing about these Roblox and Fortnite creators? We switched you to cover content creators because we wanted you to write about TikTok and YouTube and all of these, what we think of as traditional social creator platforms. And just the fact that I was getting that feedback after writing about something that I found not only to be personally very interesting, but genuinely something that I think everyone in the business of media and creators and entertainment needs to be plugged into, that made me realize that I just needed to return, I think, to covering gaming and working at a place where gaming for gaming's sake is really the focus. And so when the opportunity to jump over to GamesBeat came up, I immediately knew that it was a good fit. And yeah, I mean, it's already created so many more opportunities to write about UGC, to write about things like AI as artificial intelligence starts to upend the gaming industry, and just the shifting role of platforms and the evolution of gaming platforms into the future of social media. So hopefully this answers your question. But yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
I'm excited to be talking now.
Well, it's interesting because you've been jet setting, like GamesBeat Next, GamesBeat Hollywood and Games, Advertising Week New York, the Game Awards. You have hit every major stop over the last couple of months. You've spent a lot of time with brands, agencies, game publishers, platforms, indie developers. is UGC the theme? What are the themes that you're hearing? What are the common traits and themes that you hear when you are having these conversations? And what do you feel like the industry is obsessed with right now in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, so you astute observers of the gaming industry will probably know what my first answer to this is. By the way, I apologize for the animal sitting on my lap right now. It's somehow the best way to avoid background noise during a call.
We
Let's get a
love a
little
special
closer.
guest. We love a special guest.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, my first answer to this question is probably something that astute observers of the gaming industry would predict that I would say, which is artificial intelligence. And I mean, by the way, when you talk about jet setting, probably the craziest trip I've done this year was a couple of weeks ago. I actually flew to Paris to visit a Ubisoft studio there and do a demo of their big new AI teammates experience that they have been rolling out as a sort of beta over the last year. And so, whether at events like this that are really dedicated to AI or at conferences like GamesBeat Next a couple of weeks ago, there's no question that AI is really revolutionizing almost every facet of the game development process, from front-facing things like AI non-player characters to QA, which I think is essentially already taken over very heavily by AI, um, to things like concepting and other stages of the actual development process. Um, these these things are all just really drastically evolving in front of our eyes, and so I'd be remiss to not cite AI and the way it's changing production and marketing, and also how companies like 11 Labs and Gemini and even HeyGen are, I guess, staking more of a claim to the game development process as time goes on.
It's interesting on that
Secondly,
because I want
oh
to I
yeah,
want to just well, I want to dig on that just a little bit because it's so interesting because the business talks so much about AI and how the need for it and its cost savings and stuff like that. We understand that, but this year I have felt, looking at the feedback from consumers, that there is tremendous skepticism on
yes,
AI and they don't want AI generated things. Is that just, in your mind, is that just a reality of it's new, it's different, and gamers are not comfortable with that transition? Or is it a situation where there is a level of creative purity that this audience wants that maybe AI is going to have a harder time satiating?
I think there's elements of both for sure. I mean, first of all, in terms of that creative purity concept, I think that's valid, and I think it's important to not just wave away criticisms or skepticism of AI as people being Luddites or people jerking their knee, in response to the newest technology. I think there's some element of that there, but people also have really valid concerns, and especially as someone whose work is creative to some extent and directly threatened by AI, I get it. I totally get it. I think at some point, what we will what the story of 2026 will be to some extent is figuring out that balance of exactly where AI fits into the gaming ecosystem. And maybe we can look at other forms of content or media to see where things are going. So, for example, video. I think video content has been, I mean, drastically taken over by AI, and in some concerning ways. I mean, nowadays when I'm scrolling on Instagram, I'll see reels that purport to be real videos, and when you click through, it becomes obvious that this account just kind of blasts out AI, and that is a problem in terms of things like misinformation. Um, but I've also been very entertained by AI generated video, especially on the short form side. I'll freely admit that, especially when I know it's AI, I'll scroll through these accounts and I'll watch these zany videos and I will be entertained. And the fact that those videos are explicitly made with AI doesn't affect that experience for me. I don't think that I would enjoy making fully AI generated long form videos because at a certain point, it the lack of realism, it starts to grind a little bit, or the lack of a cohesive narrative starts to stick out more and more. And so I think, if we look at the video landscape, AI is kind of settling into this base layer of what some people might refer to as AI slop, but what I really just think of as kind of simple to make and entertaining short form video. I think in gaming, we are still trying to figure out what the equivalent format is. What is the short form gaming experience? Is it UGC? Will we start to see more AI generated UGC experiences that are meant for players to dip into for 30 minutes, maybe a couple of hours, and then never play again. I'm I'm excited about this potential world, and so I think it's not a story of, you know, AI is good or AI is evil. The story is AI fits into the gaming landscape in a certain way, the same way that AI generated content fits into other media landscapes in a certain way. I think beyond this, another story of 2026 is that there is going to be an increasingly raging debate about disclosure of AI and how much people should do, and also what it even means to disclose. Right now, the battleground for this is Steam. You might have seen some of the controversies raging over Steam's mandatory disclosure of whether AI was used to develop a game, and big names in the industry like Tim Sweeney pushing back against that. And I think there are valid arguments to be made on both sides. But one key issue is that it's entirely self identified right now. It's difficult to know exactly when AI is being implemented in the process or not, because, for example, when you know when a developer uses AI to come up with concept art, but then hand draws the final product using that AI generated art as a inspiration, how do we define that? Are they using AI in the development process or not? And so I think in the coming year we will define those practices a little more. What I will say is that from various sources that I trust and have not published their data yet, I'm hearing that as many as 90% of game developers are using AI in some step of the process right now. I mean, it's truly almost everybody, 9 out of 10, and that's much more than is disclosed on Steam right now. So for better or worse, this is part of the process, and I think gamers will just need to learn to accept that to some extent.
Yeah, and I think to your point, there's a difference between AI slop and just like having AI develop an entire game and leveraging aspects of it to recreate maps or recreate, playable characters and NPCs and stuff like that. There's a very different area there that I think will be interesting to see how they evolve those commentaries and make sure that it's disclosed in a way that I think gamers can be more comfortable with. Because for me, I always find gaming to be so communal and so social. And when you're playing a new game for the first time and you don't have a teammate, or you're trying to play a four-person game with one person, it's very isolating. And so having AI that could potentially help, be your teammate and actually be effective teammates with you and help you give will actually make you have a more enjoyable gaming experience. So I think that there's a lot of ways that it can be really valuable. And I think that that'll be an interesting area. Now I know because I pre-looked at your questions. UGC was an area of great discussion, and I'd love to kind of understand, as you have transitioned and kind of covered creator economy for the last year, that definition is very wide. I think that if you ask the average person what is the creator economy, they're going to say it's someone who puts on earphones, turns on their microphone, and talks to the world, right? And what we've seen at Overwolf is yes, that is the Hollywood darling of creator economies. That's the visual one that everyone sees. But the opportunities that exist in terms of creating tools and services and products for people to have a better gaming experience are actually also now quickly becoming not only an area of passion, but an area of lucrative business opportunities. And so talk to me a little bit about how have you seen the evolution in 2025 for UGC change from like the ugly word of like drawing a highlighter on a Monet to a real business that executives and leadership at major game publishers are leaning into for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I absolutely agree. I think there's been a huge shift in perception around UGC. It's, if I may go on a slight tangent, it's one source of frustration for me is that our world, this gaming world, has really taken this term UGC and run with it. Like everyone who's kind of in the know in this space, UGC is the term that they use to refer to what's happening. Um, I kind of wish Metaverse had taken off, man. I hate to be that guy, but the issue is that when you come from an influencer marketing perspective, like I do to some extent, UGC also refers to this totally separate concept of user generated content on traditional creator platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, what have you. And so as we push into this marketing world and as advertisers and agency people get a better grasp of UGC, I think that's a potential source of confusion for them. So I just, selfishly, I see what's happening right now as delivering on the metaverse vision that everyone was talking about in 2021. And I wish people were a little more comfortable just using that word to talk about what's happening right now. So, with that said, I am going to be saying UGC from now on because I think that is the standard terminology in the industry. But ugh,
I
I'm
think
a
I think
metaverse
I,
guy.
I think metaverse got a bad rap after 2024, which is unfortunate because, like all of these new technologies, it was it was the first steps in its evolution. It's the same thing with AI this year. Is that it's like, yes, AI has had a huge leap this year, and people are investing a lot in it, but the outcome of that is a long way away, and you're seeing that, I think, across the board with what's happening with metaverse now, where Tim Sweeney was talking about it in 2022 and 2023, and we're going to start cross collaborating, and it's like, okay, cool, but that takes years for that stuff to happen, right? And now we're seeing the results of that, which is incredible. But it's taken so long that people are like, I'm going to just scroll to the next buzzword. And yeah, it's frustrating because I think that there is a huge aspect of this where when people are creating mods and different pieces of technology, yes, it has the ability to scale across multiple games, which is the fluidity that we talked about desiring with a metaverse, right? Which is the ability for assets and tools to go without restriction across multiple environments and platforms.
Yeah, no,
We could bring it back, Alex. We could bring it back.
well, just to maybe bring us back on the rails. I mean, I think one thing that I like about UGC being the primary term that we're using here is that it acknowledges the natural kinship that is developing between these platforms like Roblox, Fortnite, again, all the different mod platforms that you guys have at Overwolf, and older social platforms like Instagram, because a lot of the behaviors are exactly the same at the end of the day. It's an ecosystem where there's creators, but also just individual people who are able to make content and participate in content, and advertisers and the platforms themselves. And so these aren't just games. These are, maybe they're not a fully interoperable ecosystem, but these are massively popular, wide reaching content ecosystems that are starting to take shape. And as a result, UGC creators are moving beyond being hobbyists or individuals, just like we saw in the early days of YouTube, where at the beginning, Smosh was a couple of guys who were just high school guys who were making videos in their bedroom, and now Smosh is this huge entertainment conglomerate. The exact same thing is happening in the UGC space, where creators are getting investment. They're becoming full service production studios that have roadmaps and analytics and revenue targets that they have to hit. And as part of that, we're starting to see more big companies signal that UGC is the future of their business. So one company that I think transparently, I think is lagging behind, but has a huge opportunity to leapfrog other companies in this area is EA. EA has access to IPs like The Sims, which have not really delivered on the full promise of what they could accomplish in this UGC world. Now that we see EA going private under new ownership, I think that's a lever that they will pull almost inevitably. But we've also seen big companies like Rockstar Games signal their interest in UGC, and this is personally interesting to me because by far the biggest story that I wrote this year was back in March, and it was a report about, it was the vaguest report, just that I had heard that Rockstar Games was having conversations with UGC creators and UGC studios in order to figure out what their needs and desires were for UGC creator tools inside GTA 6. But the simple fact that GTA 6 is going to have UGC tools and potentially will be a creator platform more than just a really awesome AAA game shows that game developers at the highest level and tech companies in general are taking this opportunity seriously.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard a couple of industry insiders kind of tell, like, as they look and visualize the future, they see like the G-rated UGC platform of Roblox, the PG-13 platform of Fortnite, and then it's like the R-rated platform, which is Rockstar and GTA 6. And you don't think about that, but then yeah, it starts to make sense. But I mean, I have to imagine, Alex, that company like Rockstar making those types of comments has industry-wide like results, right? Because as soon as someone hears that the game that always sets the new standard for most games sold ever is going to be doing something, right? Everyone's gonna have to fall in line, right?
At the end of the day, I think, 5, 10 years ago, no one would have expected Rockstar to embrace UGC. Rockstar's identity has been authorship, single author control of AAA games with high prestige and no brand involvement. I mean, notoriously, Rockstar has not included brands. They have these fake brands that exist in the GTA world, which everyone loves. Maybe you'll see like real pop stars music show up on the radio. That's the closest thing you're going to get. And so when Rockstar moves towards UGC and notably toward UGC creators, that is a signal that UGC is core to the life cycles of these AAA games. I mean, I should know this. Do you know what the latest reports are in terms of the production costs of GTA 6? It's something ridiculous, man.
I've heard it's close to 2 billion, which is
Yeah, I mean
nuts.
exactly. And so if Rockstar wants this to be a profitable game, which I think they're very confident will be, they need to bring creators in a big way. People, creators and creator content are what bring people back to these games over and over again, more and more. I do think that publishers like Rockstar, they still really care about control, and they do want to control the structure and the infrastructure of the modding and UGC communities. Um, and we've seen Rockstar signal this already. 5M is the big GTA 5 roleplay server company. So for anyone who isn't familiar with this ecosystem, this is really huge among a certain subset of gamers and gaming creators. But these are custom GTA servers in which people can basically, I mean, they're not unlike Fortnite experiences or Roblox experiences where creators can build whatever custom assets they want. They can change the rules. They can create commerce systems. I've seen 5M servers where people have fully functioning iPhones that have every app on them that an iPhone would have, which is crazy. Um, and a couple of years ago, Rockstar acquired this company and is now sort of quietly administering the what was previously a gray market space of um, GTA 5 modding. And so there's no doubt that they're taking cues from 5M and what they've learned with these servers when they build their official product for GTA 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the
GTA
day,
is a game that is a dozen plus years old. Like, I mean, it is a game and a franchise that has been around for a long time, but GTA 5 is incredibly old in gamer years. And yet every time I look at the Twitch 2020, 2023, 2025 rap reports, there it is, right up at the top. And it's fascinating to me that a game that is ancient by gaming standards is still up at the top in terms of engagement, in terms of all of viewership metrics, and that people still care about it to the level that they do. It really, to me, I think sends a new standard for what longevity looks like in video games. And I think it's a very different world than it was even 10 years ago, where you pack a box, you ship a box, and you get ready for the next box. And now you're talking about everlasting IP that is just going to be a continuous ecosystem. I mean, it's crazy to me. I want to go back to your comment about the creator economy and kind of that area. And I want to talk a little bit about, like, do you see similarities from the other industries? Like, obviously, I think that as we look, humans in general are getting more and more hungry for content to a level that is essentially unsatiable for traditional content machines, Hollywood studios, television networks. There just isn't enough content that they can be produced. And so the future seems to be these platforms that can be a place where content is made on it versus made by it. And so are you seeing that similarity from those entertainment industries navigating here to gaming? And is that where you see the future of gaming going?
totally. So, I mean, to your point, the way that entertainment worked in the past was there'd be these big tentpole releases. It takes 4 years to make every season of Stranger Things, and you just kind of sit tight and you wait for it to happen, and then it comes out and it's a big moment, and then you probably forget about it like after that, until the next season comes out, or the next movie, or the next video game edition, or what have you. But to your point, people, they don't want that anymore. People are they're hungry for IP, and they're more easily distracted to some extent, because there's just so much of, there's a huge battle for people's attention. And so I see creators and UGC as the sort of connective tissue between those tentpole moments. So let's say, okay, this is probably old news, but um, Power Rangers integrates into Arc, right? This is a big deal in three different ways. So first of all, this is huge for the Power Rangers IP because between big releases, this gives fans of the IP a way to engage directly with Power Rangers. It's big for Arc because between big Arc releases, it creates new content for players to engage with. And then obviously it's big for the creator who built this mod pack because this is how they're making their whole living. And so it's just beneficial for everybody. I guess you could also say it's beneficial to the players because they always need fresh content for the grist mill. They probably benefit the least just because there's always content for them to participate in, but they still get new great content, and maybe a way for them to participate in Power Rangers in a new way. So I absolutely agree that this is sort of the future of media, and I think gaming in particular is really primed to be the breeding ground for this kind of activity because gaming is where IP can converge. The ultimate example of this is Fortnite. I just watched Fortnite's like season 6 ending, or sorry, chapter 6 ending, chapter 7 beginning live event, and there was this crazy moment where they're like fighting this giant monster. I just watched a video of it, to be honest, so I'm like exposing myself. I don't actually know the context here, but they're fighting some giant monster, and all of a sudden all of these characters are portaling in like in Avengers Endgame, but it's like Marvel characters, Superman, Homer Simpson, Godzilla, Transformers, I think. All of these IPs just crashing in and running at this monster together. And I don't know, maybe to some extent you can roll your eyes like, yeah, we saw Ready Player One, when it came out 6 years ago or whatever. But I mean, gaming allows, not only does it allow us to see these things, it then gives creators the opportunity to take these assets and put them into their own worlds and play with them like virtual dolls. So yeah, I mean, not only are all of these properties benefiting from the promotion that they get through gaming and UGC, but there's also an added boost from the cross pollination from as different IPs show up in the same places.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point there of this is the new way forward. And it's so easy to look at the triple A's, right? Fortnite and Roblox and GTA and go, oh, well, yeah. But the question I always get asked by every other game publisher, well, hey, what do I do? Right? I don't have those billions. I don't have that ecosystem and infrastructure. Like, what can I do? But that's where we're starting to see Power Rangers in Arc. We're seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Arc. We're seeing. I saw there was a horror movie. I think that was in a game the other day. Like we're starting to see double A and single A games, even indie developers having opportunities to integrate brands and IP and stuff like that into their ecosystems. And to your point, I think that it's not just money, it's not just relevancy, it's that combination that is helping to propel studios and game publishers in a way that has never been possible before. And when studios are dealing with the harsh realities of budget cuts and everything else, now we're seeing a world where, oh, a third party can come in and help to make those assets and IP, and I can monetize it and benefit it. That's incredible. That's a huge opportunity. And I think that's where we're seeing kind of these double A and single A game publishers and indie game publishers having that opportunity to monetize.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I think this is coming at a really opportune time for gaming. A third, in addition to AI and UGC, a big topic of discussion at GamesBeat Next last month was the changing landscape of monetization and how monetizing games is becoming more and more difficult, both for traditional studios and even for creators and UGC platforms. And so they are bringing brands in much more frequently and earlier in the process of development to increase brand integration and advertising opportunities, but do so in a way that is core to the game and its mechanics. And so, yeah, I mean, once again, I think UGC is probably the easiest way to do this because, as we saw over the last 4 years, it's been really difficult to integrate brands into the long production timelines of AAA games. And so I'm not surprised that single A, double A, UGC game creators are seeing more interest from brands because it's just a much easier opportunity for and quicker to iterate on opportunity for advertisers.
Yeah, my team just reminded me that it was the Black Phone 2 movie from Universal Pictures, which is scary, scary, scary stuff. They integrate into the game Repo, which if you were to ask the average person a month ago or a month and a half ago, what is Repo? They would go, I have no idea. It came out of nowhere. But again, right out the door, game is popular. There's an audience there. It was a perfect integration. Super creepy game, super creepy movie. There's a ton of synergy there that I think is really, really powerful. All right, we're getting close to time here, Alex. You and I could probably talk for a decade if we needed to about all these different things, and so it's great having you on the show. But I want to talk a little bit about just kind of looking forward, thinking about the opportunities that exist in 2026. What are the things that you're excited about? What are the things that you think are going to be the big conversation topics in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, without being too dramatic about it, I really think that 2026 is going to be an inflection point for the gaming industry in a number of different ways. Um, I think we can't understate how UGC is becoming a default feature of almost every live service title now in various ways, and that will just continue to deepen as time goes on. I also think we'll start to see AI become way more openly involved in the dev process, for example, through things like AI coding assistance, making prototyping much faster, as well as things like the Ubisoft demo of AI teammates and other kind of front-facing generative AI functions becoming standard. I got to tell you, this Ubisoft demo was incredibly cool, and I hope it becomes available to the public at some point. And lastly, just the evolution of games as creator platforms is going to continue to happen, and will speed up significantly in 2026, especially if GTA is able to get or if Rockstar is able to get GTA 6 across the line next year. No longer are games going to be promoted themselves by influencers promoting games or exclusively by influencers promoting games, but we're actually going to start to see games promote through UGC and have creators build inside games and make real money, in much more depth than ever before. Yeah, so I also want to talk about how I think discoverability is really going to improve on these platforms. I'm sure this is something that you guys are across and working on, constantly. But as platforms like Fortnite and Roblox become more like YouTube, I think they'll take cues from YouTube and make it easier for people to follow their favorite creators, maybe even have feeds that, serve their newest and latest content more easily. And also, they will continue to tweak their algorithms as well to surface, I think, newer and maybe more original content. One big struggle on these platforms has been sameness. The sort of metagame on Roblox and Fortnite has been for creators to see what is popular and then copy it in this sort of race to the bottom, to see whoever can soak up the most traffic and engagement around a popular format. And I think this is a source of concern for the platforms themselves, because this is not really how things took shape on YouTube. I mean, to some extent, reacting videos are a thing, but I think platforms like YouTube do reward originality. And so we're going to see more shifts to discovery algorithms, I think, to promote original content and kind of reverse the way that the culture is flowing on those platforms.
Yeah, one of the things is that love all of those things, and I'm really excited that you're talking and specifically about the opportunities that UGC is going to play in the ecosystem directly. I think from an industry perspective, one of the things that I would just love to hear more about from you as we look at trends in 2026, 2025, there was a lot of conversations around GDC and the lack of attendance and the lack of investment by game publishers, industry into the ecosystem to support live events, to support physical face-to-face opportunities. We are now a couple of years past the end of the pandemic. And there still seems to be this thought process by companies of like, oh, I don't need to invest in those experiential things, those events, those opportunities for face to face. We're obviously doing this virtually. We could have probably gotten together and done it together, but GamesBeat seems to be one company that is putting a flag down and saying, no, we need to get together. We need to spend time together. We need face-to-face conversation because it actually what drives our industry forward. And I'm a big proponent of that. We invest a lot in supporting as Overwolf these events and stuff like that because we believe that getting people together breeds a lot of value, but it's got to be a hard stance to have. So I'd love to just kind of think and hear a little bit about, where you guys are going. Obviously, you've restructured, you're independent now, you're going out on your own. This is a pretty big statement for our industry that seems to be a bit counterculture to what's happening right now, but would love to kind of understand more of what GamesBeat is going to be doing next year because I'm excited to get back out and end up on the roads in more of these places.
Yeah, I want to lead off my answer to this question by saying I'm GamesBeat's lead news writer. The real people who are running the show are Gina and Dean, who are CEO and our editorial director. So if they're listening to this podcast, I defer to them on everything. But with that said, I can speak to this, and I really appreciate the opportunity to plug what we're building at GamesBeat a little bit. So thank you for that question. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. For better or worse, there's a contrast between how people view events right now. I think people really, companies in this space, people working in the gaming industry really value physical events. Everything online feels like it's flattened out a little bit. It's less authentic. It's very algorithmic. And so when you can walk into a room of people who are all experts and passionate about this industry, it takes that filter away and allows you to have real conversations. And I think people kind of naturally understand that, but there is still a wariness around supporting live events when so many things can be accomplished online and so much business is happening, through the web. Fewer people want to support live events. I mean, we had record-breaking attendance at GamesBeat Next last month, and I was very happy about that. But honestly, there's so much more. I would like to see more people in the UGC space attend these events, for example, and that's something I'm planning to build out quite a bit. I think there needs to be more attendance from people on the brand and agency side, because I think there's a view that GamesBeat is primarily a conference for game developers, but as we've discussed for the last half hour, brands and advertising are becoming core to the game development process, and so they should be part of these industry events and these conversations as well. My understanding is that a desire for more attention and support for gaming industry events is a big part of why GamesBeat reorganized as an independent company this year, really to double down on events and editorial curation, I think, as our core value, if that's a fair way to describe it. But we are going all in on having bigger in-person events and more frequent ones. In addition to GamesBeat Next last month, we also just had a very successful Hollywood and Games event around the Game Awards on December 11th. And the goal of all of these events is to have really highly curated programming. So not only is every session interesting to the people attending, every session is actually newsworthy. And we're going through still some of the sessions from GamesBeat Next and writing them up as stories for the GamesBeat website because they are chock full of insights that I don't think you could get anywhere else. The goal is just to have every person in the ecosystem, every stakeholder in that room at the same time, whether it's publishers, developers, brands and investors, but also crucially creators, and to continue the conversations even after the events end using our reporting. So the hope is that in this increasingly attention saturated world, that building our coverage and our editorial curation again around these live events will help set us apart.
Yeah, I think the last thing on that topic that I will say is I really enjoy the fact that GamesBeat has their editors leading the panels, leading the conversations. I think it adds a tremendous amount of credibility to the panels. Oftentimes you go to a conference and it's like, cool, it's sponsored by this company and they're going to get up there and basically do a sales presentation. And it can be difficult to gain value out of that. And I think that what you all have been doing in terms of stepping forward and leading those conversations and, sometimes asking tough conversations and tough questions of people, I think actually provides a tremendous value to the industry in terms of being able to have trustworthy sessions that are actually getting into some of the issues and the needs that the industry has. So I know it's not always easy to ask tough questions and to have to double check someone's answer, but I think it's really valuable right now in this day and age, especially with trying to attract brands, agencies, what we would call traditional outsiders to these events. They have to know that there's some sort of editorial integrity that's playing into this. So appreciate that, Alex, and looking forward to more from GamesBeat in 2026 as we get out there. Anyone listening, highly recommend getting out to at least one GamesBeat event next year. I am biased. I went to the ones this year, but I found them to be incredibly useful. So appreciate that. Before we let you go, Alex, it is the holiday season. I do like to ask at least some fun off the beat question at the end just to keep people fun and having a good time. This is the holiday season. Everybody's jolly and bright and happy. What's the one holiday thing that annoys you?
Honestly, it's how quickly people move on from Thanksgiving. I'm a huge Thanksgiving guy. It's my favorite holiday. I like watching football. I like eating all the food. I don't actually celebrate any winter holidays because I wasn't raised in any religious tradition. So maybe I'm a Grinch in that way. But I'm telling you, the day after Thanksgiving, it wasn't even December, I was visiting my parents and I went into their town to get some food, and it took us like 10 minutes longer to get through town because all these kids were walking around in elf costumes for the Christmas tree lighting. And I was like, bro, let Thanksgiving die. It's not even cold in its grave and we're already celebrating Christmas. Come on. So yeah, my biggest issue with the holidays is that Thanksgiving does not get the attention it deserves.
Well said. Well said. I think that's a great one. We'll leave it at that. Again, Alex, thanks for being on the pod this week. This has been a really fun to kind of talk about 2025, look at the crystal ball for 26. Think there's a lot of really exciting things. And for those that are interested, GamesBeat is having some events. Alex is also writing lots of great articles on there. So check it out. If you need help, you can always check out my LinkedIn page. I like to add, reshare Alex's post as much as possible. Appreciate you joining us, buddy. Really had a great time and appreciate the conversation.
Likewise, Nate. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. All right. This has been your latest issue of the Leaderboard Insights podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Lindberg, and we will be back next year. Looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody.